In the early days of Broadcasting House, pioneering technicians found the best way to perfect radio sound was through the constant use of an unlikely tune.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise.
Morning, Mr. Cleveland. It's 5:45. It's time to get up.
Because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
Now, in 1982, I'm walking up the flight of steps that still leads up to the third-floor studios. And as I walk, I'm haunted by an echoing sound. Frankly, it was a sound that in the old days used to drive us all balmy. The Teddy Bears Picnic. The engineers used to play it every morning, and it seemed to me to go on for hours. But they were using it to line up the studios. Apparently, it had the right range of sounds, and the engineers defended it to the death. Could we have some change, we begged? Beethoven, Brahms, even Cole Porter. But no, on went this Teddy Bears, or rather, the engineers' picnic. But it gave one designer a bright idea. And here we are now, about to enter what used to be the special Children's Hour studio. And the designer suggested that the microphone should be hidden in a cuddly teddy bear. Unfortunately, the idea never came to fruition. And neither did the idea of having patterns on the wall of Humpty Dumpty and Goosey Goosey Gander, intertwined with comical monkeys, fluffy ducks, and lambs.
See them gaily gadabout. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, their mommies and daddies will take them home to bed, 'cause they're tired little teddy bears.
Guglielmo Marconi is credited with discovering how radio waves could be transmitted, but he could never be sure of why. And the true nature of radio waves is only slightly less mysterious now than it was then. So, in the true spirit of scientific inquiry, Arena asked the eminent physicist, Dr. Fisher-Dilke, to venture an investigation.
You can hold it, it's natural to hold it. Oh, yes. Okay, right, everybody okay, you ready?
Can you tell us what the accepted definition of a radio wave is?
Well, it's very difficult saying what a radio wave is. It really is a difficult problem. It's, in fact, possibly the biggest problem of physics this century.
A radio wave comes from a transmitter station, goes through the air, immaterial chrome, and is picked up by the antenna.
These waves, however, are travelling much slower than radio waves. Radio waves would be travelling across here. We've got a standing wave here. It's got to be a travelling wave. It can't be a standing wave. I don't see how you can explain these sorts of things. I think they're far too complicated. If you imagine the light that we can see spread out as a rainbow on a spectrum like this, with a red end here and the blue end there, then there are all sorts of lights which have too short a wavelength for our eyes to detect off here, and too long a wavelength for our eyes to detect off here. These ones are called ultraviolet light, gamma rays, and X-rays. And off here, off the red end of the spectrum, are heat, radiative heat, the sort of thing that you feel coming out from an electric fire, you can't see. And beyond that, television waves and radio waves. What I don't understand is this. If they didn't learn it at school, if people stop listening to science at school at the age of 10 or 13 or 14, why are they going to be entertained by this? Now, radio waves themselves vary in wavelengths. FM is carried on waves that are about 3 meters long. Television is carried on waves that are about 50 to 60 centimeters long. And long wave really is long. It's about a mile long. Huge, great big things. City blocks long. It's tremendously tempting to think of radio as waves and just forget about it, because the similarities are so enormously close. If I put this in, you can see that waves bounce off an object in a quite irregular sort of way. If you can imagine these being radio waves bouncing off a building, they might bounce forward and then off another building, come back, interfere, and radio reception in the area would be quite intolerable.
Diabolical, you know, as I say, you know, I listen to a sports channel more often than not, and in the evening, especially being in a built-up area, if a football match is on, I've got to keep fiddling about with the buttons and whatnot, you know? And it can be a bit frustrating.
And it's enormously tempting to suppose that radio waves just are waves. After all, they're called radio waves, and call it that. But they're not. And this is clearest in the case of their cousins, the light waves. Equipment exists which detects light. And if you turn the volume of the light down, if you make the room dark around, the equipment is detecting only the smallest quantities of light. And what it detects are clicks, little clicks, as little pieces of light impact onto it. That isn't the way that a wave behaves at all. It's the way a particle behaves. It's the way a bullet behaves. You can't explain something like that in this sort of way. You have to put... This kind of stuff is what is taught to people if they're interested in, if they're doing a physics degree in the first year of their postgraduate work. So this stuff which radio waves and light and so on is made of, sometimes behaves like a wave, and it sometimes behaves like a particle. In fact, it's extraordinarily difficult to say what exactly it is. It defies our imagination. It's tremendously, tremendously hard to get a physical picture of what is going on. Well, I think it's doomed. It's doomed.
But you're Dr. Dilk, and I think you put it over in a very simple
No, it's doomed. I don't think it's possible to do it. I don't think it's possible to do it. I don't think a single person will really understand anything as a result of all this.
What is a radio wave? Knowing what it is and saying what it is two different things, isn't it?
So the fact that we don't know what radio waves are or light waves are doesn't mean that people are stupid or that they haven't been working hard or that the science isn't a successful science. It genuinely is very puzzling. And if you were really to put honestly to a physicist, a good physicist, the question, what is it? The answer that that person would come back would be, I don't know. How's that?
Tell you what I've often wondered. I've often wondered how the hell you managed to get radio on your car when you're driving through a tunnel sometimes, and another time you go through a tunnel you can't hear it through a car.
Well, actually, I don't know the reason for that.
Regardless of what they are, radio waves are finally just a means to an end. Gerald Wells has transformed his passion for everything having to do with radios into his own personal shrine. And his home in Dulwich, South London, is now officially the Vintage Wireless Museum.
This is Gerald Wells. You're listening to the broadcasting system of the Vintage Wireless Museum, South London.
I flow through here, see the music goes round and round, whoa, when it comes up. Then I push the first valve down, the music goes down and round, whoa, when it comes up.
I wanted to set up a pirate radio station. because the BBC and the media generally weren't supplying me with what I wanted. I wanted tunes. And you can't get tunes on a medium wave anymore. It only goes bomb, bomb, tss, tss. So I thought, I'll set up my own low-power medium wave station, playing the music that I like. No disc jockeys, no American accents, no hard rock. The DTI won't be interested because you can't possibly be a pirate station unless you're putting that sort of stuff out. Pirate stations don't play tunes. My father bought this house in 1914. My sisters were born here, so I was born here in 1929 and grew up here and inherited the house. The interest in radio began very early on, certainly before I could speak properly or even walk properly. It very quickly developed into something which was just much more than a hobby. It was a must. It was an all-pervading interest.
Making believe is just another way of dreaming, so till my dreams come true.
I was fascinated by the look, sight, sound and smell of it, especially the smell of battery acid and rubber wiring and dust generally, and fascinated by the noise it made.
I'm making believe that you're in my arms, though I know you're so far away.
As an art form, it was a very beautiful object. It was a fairly new piece of furniture with marquetry, inlays, beautiful veneers and finishes. The designs varied according to who designed them. HMVs, for instance, the Marconi Phone Company, the Ultra Company, Cossers have their own beautiful designs, Murphy were quite outstanding, Echoes with their round Bakelite cabinets, and Philipses with their sort of Gothic and high church designs.
Dreams come true. I'll whisper good night, turn out the light and kiss my pillow, making believe it's you.
There was great joy in picking up foreign stations. To pick up Radio Normandy, Radio Lyons, Radio Paris and Radio Roma. There were dozens and dozens of them. If you look on any of the radios, some wonderful names that probably have disappeared now. It became the topic of conversation in the trains and in the bus queues and on the way to work the following day of what you'd picked up on your radio the night before.
Let's all join the old umbrella man and sing.
It was a focal point of the room. It was like a member of a family. It was a very important part of the family. We would switch it on and we would listen to it. We wouldn't just hear it. We wouldn't dream of wandering off and turning our back on it while it was playing. It would be considered very rude to the radio. We would all sit down and listen to Happy Drone on a Sunday night, to Itmar at 8:30 on a Thursday night, or we'd sit down and listen to Monday Night at 8 on a Monday night, and everything would stop for Saturday Night Theatre on the home service at 9 o'clock on a Saturday. That was absolute joy.
This is London. I have to tell you now that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
There was all these houses that were being bombed and blown to pieces, and all the old remains of radios, remains of electrical fittings were lying around. And I felt so sorry for them. I felt they had to be rescued, cleaned up, looked after and preserved. I didn't think I was breaking the law. Everybody else did, though. And this obsession, as they called it, really got out of hand. So in the end I was taken before a psychiatrist who asked me lots and lots of questions and examined me and told me that I'd got an obsession. Well, I could have told him that anyway. But he carried on. And it gradually got me into further trouble. I fell in love with a small Belmont radio. It was on the shop counter of a shop in Norwood High Street, and one Saturday afternoon I went in and acquired it. Got chased and caught and sent to a Home Office approved school.
No, sir. I never been into the shop before. Another boy told me about it. But I didn't go in there to steal it. I just picked it up on a spur of the moment to look at it, sir. And that's the truth, sir, honestly.
In 1945, the Crown Film Unit made a documentary film, a training film for probation officers, social workers and do-gooders generally. And my case history was used as one of the case histories in that film.
Extra helpings, table 13.
It was a very moving experience to see that film later. It brought back so many memories. And to see the staff as young people, as they were then, in their 30s and 40s, it was quite a traumatic experience. This approved school had a wonderful headmaster. His name was John Varley. A very clever man, later became an OBE. He looked a bit like Arthur Askey. Thick glasses, slightly bigger, very jovial, happy sort of a man, not a bit like headmasters I'd known before. He made me very welcome, put me at my ease straight away, and welcomed the fact that I was interested in radio and electricity, because so was he and so was a member of his staff, and we set up a workshop.
Can I have a small screwdriver, please, sir?
He started looking around for radios for me and bits and pieces instead of me going out for him. And I think he set up quite a nice little business on the quiet, probably. After I left for Red Bank School, I got straight involved with wireless repairs and television as soon as it started up in '46. And built up a very nice business and managed to make a living of sorts. And then several silly things happened. When ITV started up, I was buying all these little boxes and sticking them on all the sets all the way around Dulwich. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. I was making money hand over fist. It was brilliant. We're buying these converters for £5 and charging £12 for them. I couldn't get enough of them. I was doing more conversions than Billy Graham. It was brilliant. Until BBC opened up their giant transmitter at Crystal Palace and swamped everything with signal, and my poor converters didn't stand a chance in hell. And you got BBC no matter where you went. You hardly had to switch your set on to get it. You hardly needed an aerial. It would work on a bit of wet string. By 1973, everything gave out. I wasn't a good businessman, hadn't made much money, and my health cracked up. 2 slip discs, double hernia, heart attack, sebaceous cyst, and a wow of a nervous breakdown. So in 1974, all I'd got left was a pile of rotting radios and 2 large leaking sheds. And I felt I had a bad deal. I was feeling very bitter. And so I said, F a lot of them. I'll start the Vintage Wireless Museum with what I've got left. And I did, and it took off.
Close to here, the music goes round and round, whoa, when it comes up here.
I've dedicated the house to the radio, the gardens, my neighbours' gardens, and my whole life to this work. It's now wireless sets from morning, noon to night. I've done what my mother forecast I would do. 2 things, in fact. She says, when I was 3 or 4 years old, she says, if I'm not going to be careful, I'll be spending the rest of my life messing around in a shed at the bottom of the garden. I've certainly done that. She also said I won't be happy till I fill the whole house up with wireless sets. And I've certainly done that.
Goodbye, everyone, and here's to the next time.